things. So one of the things for me personally, I've been interested in is around how council interfaces with the branch members and represents the branch members to help influence IOSH. I may have a misunderstanding of it, so I do apologize. But that's what, Natasha, in her role, will be able to give us some more clarity on how, in this new year, how could we as committee and branch members help support council and vice versa. So I wanted to hand over to Natasha.
Hi. So yeah, for those of you who haven't met me yet, I already said my name's Natasha. This is my second year on council now. I'm going into my second year. This year has been very different. It's all been virtual. It's been weird not being able to get up to the Grange and not being able to be in person and being able to have a drink with everyone and everything. But essentially my role is to represent the voices of our membership, regardless of which branch they're at, regardless of where in the world they are. Each council member is there to represent the membership and to take concerns and comments and suggestions to council for consideration. And in particular on certain things such as the membership grades review. If any of you are on the forums, you will know that I was heavily involved in being the bridge between governance and IOSH and the membership there. So yeah, that particular piece of work was very involved. I spent a lot of time on the forums, but I did make sure that every single one of those comments were taken back to governance, to Vanessa and her team, and that they were all considered, because that is what I'm there to do. So the way it will work is if anyone has any suggestions, any concerns, they're not happy with anything that IOSH is doing, or they want me to raise something, then you can contact me. I did put my email address in the chat box earlier. Contact me and give me a bit of background info, and then I can actually table it at the council meeting. We do have the opportunity to raise any other business. We also have the opportunity to respond to things that the board of trustees tell us and that the senior leadership team tell us. Decision-making powers. Okay, so we are there to hold the board of trustees to account. It is now the board of trustees' responsibility to hold the senior leadership team to account. So the senior leadership team do the operational day-to-day running. It's the job of the board of trustees to make sure that they are carrying out their roles in the best interest of the charitable objectives. We are not there to interfere in operational decisions. We are there to voice opinions. Sorry, I'm just keeping up with the chat here at the same time. So, oh, that's nothing to do with council. That's fine. Sorry, I'm keeping an eye on both. So we're not there to try and influence operational decisions, but what we are there is to advise on the strategic direction of the organisation and make sure that the members' voices are heard. So, for example, I can give you, we met last week, by the way. So we had a full 2-day meeting, full 2 days of meetings last week. Jimmy actually chaired his very first council meeting. He did it absolutely brilliantly. And I can just give you a rundown of some of the things that we discussed. So as you would expect in any meeting, you run through the standard agenda items such as the minutes and matters and actions outstanding. So we did run through that. Jimmy gave a president's update and basically explained what has been happening over the last year. So we run a couple of focus groups, which I can discuss in a minute. We also get we get an overview and an assurance report provided to us by the Board of Trustees. So all the paperwork we get about 2 weeks in advance, and it is our job to read that paperwork with a very fine-tooth comb. There's a lot of it. I'm sure Louise will tell you it was about that thick this time. And then we go through that, and any questions we have on those agenda items, we then raise at the time. So another thing that we were presented was a presentation by the Director of Strategy and Business Development, which relates to the development of the future strategy, which will succeed Work 2022. Obviously, we are coming to the end of Work 2022 and we need to think going ahead. Now, leading into that, Council has had an input into that because we held a horizon scanning workshop. I believe it was just before Christmas, Louise, am I right? Yeah, so it was just before Christmas. Council members got together very much in this setting. We had breakout rooms and everything else. And we actually came up with some points that we felt on behalf of the membership were poignant and pertinent to the profession going forward. So there were all sorts of things to do with mental health, to do with, I think human capital was one of them, sustainability. So there were lots of things that we discussed in that workshop and that we then put to the leadership team and the board, and they have incorporated that into their directional thinking for the next strategy. And when that strategy is developed, that will then be brought back to us and we'll get oversight of that. The next one, the biggest one that you'll probably be interested in, is the member grades review implementation. So you may be aware that we've had communications that the grades review was taken to Privy Council. Privy Council have made some more recommendations, which we would require certain things to be amended. So the regulations would need to be amended, which we actually had to approve that. And we've also agreed to hold an extraordinary meeting in this summer to receive any necessary proposals for amendments to any other regulations which may be affected by the implementation of the recommendations of the member grade review. So basically, what happens now is the outcome of this grades review goes back to Privy Council. If Privy Council are happy, it will come back to Council, and we will hold this extraordinary meeting in the summer to discuss whether there are any other changes to regulations or bylaws that need to happen. And it will be down to us as your voice to make sure that any changes or any regulation amendments do not negatively affect you, and that they are all in your best interests. So the amendments that are likely to be required to be looked at are things to do with IPD, CPD and admissions. Now, at the moment, we don't know what those amendments or changes might be. All we know is that those are the ones that will be affected or could potentially be affected. So we also discussed branch elections. We discussed the outcomes of the recent elections. There's been a massive piece of work on how we develop the careers of our future leaders and how we promote our profession. So we've put, one of the members of council put together a paper to us. We considered it and we've put some recommendations in place so that it was considered that we should create the future leaders community as a sector group rather than as a steering committee, so that they actually have a formal recognised place. We also asked or agreed that a request should be made that a council observer is invited to attend any of those future leaders steering group meetings. So just to give you a slight overview, each of the committees that work within IOSH, so we have nominations committee, we have the finance committee, we have quite a few and I can never remember all of them, but each committee has a council observer attached to it. So a member of council goes to those meetings and observes what happens in those meetings. And then we can feed back and assure council that those committees are operating within their confines. So what we've asked is that a council observer is invited to attend the Future Leaders Steering Group meetings. We've also agreed to support arrangement of a one-off session regarding membership engagement and development through effective promotion of our profession. So basically what we want to do is provide the Board of Trustees and the rest of our council members with real world data and feedback on, what opportunities are available out there, and give IOSH the opportunity to better position itself as a promoter and supporter of OSH as a first career, rather than many of us who have come into it as a second career. And we've also recommended to IOSH that consideration be given to amending Regulation 15, which will ensure that at least one future leader is appointed to each branch executive committee. Work around that is still continuing, but we have agreed to that recommendation because we felt that in order to promote the profession as a first career, we needed those future leaders on board. Mm-hmm. Yeah. There was also, we're on to the last couple of things now. There was also a review of the elections process for council. And what we have approved is a change in the way those candidates are selected. You may remember we had a phenomenal record amount of council applications last year, and it's becoming increasingly important that we get the right people onto council. So what we've done is we've approved a recommendation for a two-stage process, which is very similar to the process that is used for PE and president nominations. So you can apply, there'll be a selection by a panel, and then those selected by the panel will go through to the vote by the membership for those places on council. We felt that would help get the right people and the right caliber of people onto council. Mm. And then we've got some focus groups. So every president is entitled to focus on some areas. So for this year, that Jimmy's focusing on veterans and he's focusing on mental health. So each president sets up what they call focus groups, and I sit on the mental health focus group. So we had updates, every council meeting we have updates from those focus groups, and we get to have a look at the recommendations from some of those reports. So that was one of the things that happened. And then when those focus groups complete their task, those focus groups are disbanded. One of the things that we did agree is that there were a number of council members who have resigned from council this year for various reasons. And we have, by vote, agreed that those vacancies that have come about as a result of those resignations can be filled in the interim by those candidates who weren't successful in last year's elections for council. So some of last year's candidates will end up joining council as replacements for those that have resigned. Mm. And basically we agreed to amend the role profile of the president-elect. So at the moment, there was no clarity and granularity and synchronicity between the president's role and the president-elect. So the president is the chair of council, and de facto that makes the president-elect vice chair, but that wasn't reflected in the role profiles. So there's been some work behind the scenes, and we have agreed and voted on it, and we will now address the president-elect as vice chair. So Louise will now be vice chair of our council meetings. So yeah, she's a very important person. I'm just looking at these. How many people on mental health focus group have a clinical qualification? That I couldn't tell you, but I do know that the mental health focus group, so our purpose is to look at what mental health support there is for our membership. We are not there to provide clinical services. We are just there to assess what is available and what support IOSH gives to its members. We are doing lots of work behind the scenes comparing organizations and what offering they give to their employees, so that we can then look at how we treat our members and what support we can give our members. I honestly don't know if many of us have clinical qualifications. I am a trained mental health first aider.
No, I mean, who's got qualifications in psychology or similar? Mental health first aid is not a qualification.
No, it's not.
And I think there is a great fear that people are calling themselves mental health experts for mental health first aid qualification. Those in the psychology profession, I know, and that some of the mental health charities are very worried with this because it's almost dumbing down mental health.
None of us profess to be mental health experts, but what we do say and what we can profess to be are people on our mental health journey. We are people who have lived through mental health issues and have come out the other side, and can provide not necessarily support and advice, but we can provide that listening ear. That's what I do in my workplace. I'm not there to diagnose. I hold my hands up. I'm not clinical. I'm not a medical person. I am there to provide that listening ear. What we are trying to do is provide that similar support, or get IOSH to provide offerings to our membership to help people who have needs in terms of mental health provision. And that is primarily what our goal is, to look at what is out there and what we can provide to the membership. Not trying to provide a medical service. We're just there to try and find a signposting service, if you like. That's what mental health first aid is all about.
I agree. Look, Natasha, thanks so much. I think this has been very informative in terms of some of the areas that you all as members of council are looking at. It would be good going forward. Maybe we keep a cadence going, if it's quarterly, where we could get those updates, but also how do we provide feedback so you can take it. So I guess with you being on the committee, that's one way to keep that connection going.
Yeah, I'm here as that direct link to bridge that gap. I don't think there are many other committees and branches that have that link. You know, Louise was very keen to get that link between Chiltern Branch and council, and I'm happy to fill that link.
No, I appreciate that. That's good. I saw Jake asked a question about location, so I know you all have answered it. I will be very transparent. I have been to one in-person event, and it was London Met the week before we went into lockdown. So I've not been to Margate, the Holiday Inn Margate, but one of the things we do have to look at as a committee is, I may be pronouncing it incorrectly.
Margate.
Okay, so that's what I said. Anyway, yeah, however you pronounce it. Sorry. I know you all have been there several times. But one of the things we do need to discuss as a committee is, once we can start doing in-person events, do we keep with that location? Is there a different location, etc.? So that's something we will need to look at later on in the year. So I agree. So thanks very much, Natasha. I'm conscious of time, and I'm conscious that we have lost a couple of people. So Louise was going to give us a bit of view of her look ahead of the year and beyond, but we'll leave that for another session. So thank you, Louise. And I think it's really good to hear from yourself, Natasha. I had a question as you talk about strategy beyond Work 2022. And the question, you don't need to answer it now, but for me, it's around sustainability and the role of us as IOSH professionals in sustainability going forward, because we keep hearing about the word sustainability, right? And I know it's in the competency framework, but is that going to evolve? Is that going to get bigger, smaller, or disappear? But
judging by the discussions we had in the horizon scanning workshop, Sustainability is going to be quite high on the agenda. There's lots of parts to sustainability. So the human capital element will come under the sustainability arm. Sustainability means a lot of things to a lot of different people. It covers all sorts, from safety to environmental to corporate social responsibility.
Yes.
So it's picking out those bits that are relevant. It will be a big piece of the strategy, I'm pretty certain of it. But how that takes shape, I'm not sure we know yet, because we haven't actually had sight of a concrete strategy. We've just had some ideas of what could be included.
Yeah, and that just shows a great opportunity, I think, for the health and safety professional going forward. I see Alan has raised his hand, so we'll go with Alan, and then we'll start to close off.
Yeah, thanks, Melissa. It was just really picking up on location and venues. One of the plans, as I said, while we can't meet face to face, is to try and run these virtual sessions that we are looking for our membership, or even people further afield, because it doesn't matter where you are in the world, who are willing to share their locations, particular issues that they might have, how they've approached application of risk assessment regs, etc. When we do get to meet face to face again, we've got a few ideas. We've had these on the agenda for a long time, to visit different premises. It's always good to look over the fence, and that generates a lot more discussion, and I think we'll all be looking forward to visiting other people as well. So if anybody's got any ideas, please share it, either in the chat now or through the branch email or Twitter or LinkedIn or whatever, but please, anyone not involved in the committee, you're the ones we need to hear from.
Yeah, I agree. No, thank you, Alan, so much. Good. Just looking to see if anybody else has their hand raised. If not,
Melissa, just it'd be nice to, Natalie, thank you for coming. I don't know, did we do it all right from a governance perspective?
Yeah, Louise, it was all perfect. Absolutely great. It's lovely. It's lovely to be invited, because we just like this with this governance that nobody actually puts a face to. So it's lovely to see some faces for us as well. And Natasha, that was a great overview from council as well.
I'm sure you would have jumped in if I'd have said something I wasn't supposed to.
No, that's all.
No, thanks. Thanks, Natalie, for having attended. So just again, I just want to say thanks very much for everyone for the last 12 months. Louise, for you steering the ship, and all of the committee members from 2020 into 2021, and now for the new committee members. Most of them are the same. As we move forward, 2021 into 2022, we have a lot of great things in store. We great opportunity to influence and make a difference. We need all of you all as committee members. We also need the branch members, and as I said before, we are here in service of the branch members. So I look forward to working with each and every one of you all over the next 12 months. So have a great rest of the week. And Louise, do not combine your gin and your rum, please.
So much to everybody, and here's to the next year.
Thanks very much, everyone.
Thanks.
Have a great day.
Bye.